Everest tells the story of a climbing expedition led by Rob Hall that goes awry when a devastating snowstorm comes out of nowhere. It's also a film that has an incredible ensemble cast and where it feels like you have to go through a couple of pages just to be able to read everybody who's in this movie, but then also a film that seems like it has some incredible visuals. And with that true story element, definitely feels like they're gonna campaign for the Oscars. So let's get into the good, the bad, and everything in between. Now, straight out, the strongest aspects of this movie are the cinematography and the sound design, and where you have the cinematography that's done well because a lot of it is green screen and such, yet it still works in creating this environment, and the sound design is hands down the best part of this movie. There's even the 3D, which I'm not a fan of, but considering that I saw it in 3D and was still like, hey, you know what, it didn't bother me, I say definitely go check it out, because it does still create this really cool idea of depth of field, and there's even several moments where I was watching the movie, and there's a dude sitting right next to me, and there's a scene where a guy's like about to fall. It works so well. The dude reached out to try to help the man. That being said, while I think that these two are the strongest aspects and the things that they should be campaigning for in the Oscars, these things are at the top of the mountain. Everything else tried to get there. I mean, the cast, the ensemble, it's great. However, it isn't the best that it could have been. For example, you have Jason Clarke, who is playing the lead, and what he has is this agency and where he's bringing people to try to reach the peak of the mountain. So he has Josh Brolin, who's pretty much like the macho guy. There's Michael Kelly, who's a reporter. John Hawkes, who I would say is the heart of the film, and then several other actors who are joining him on that trip. This, however, doesn't include the people who are still at camp helping out. For example, like Emily Watson and the villain from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., who are there just watching out for whatever they need. And then also having the wives, Keira Knightley and Robin Wright, who don't have the biggest parts but still come in some like phone conversations, and all of those just make up Jason Clarke's group. There's then Jake Gyllenhaal, who has his own group that's trying to make it up the mountain. And then there's a group of South Africans who have their own group, and they're trying to make it up the mountain as well. And then you also have like Sam Worthington, who's out in the middle of nowhere doing something else. And I would say for the format that they were trying to tell, like the story that they chose to tell, they do it well. And where sure, there's a lot of people, but that first hour or more is all a big intro, just setting you up for the characters so you get to know who they are, like every single one individually, and then setting up the scenario before getting to those last 40-ish minutes where it becomes that whole IMAX fest of just craziness. I'll even go ahead and defend one of the biggest things that a lot of people have been nitpicking it for, and it's the whole whitewashing thing. And sure, that's a big deal in Hollywood, but here, they're white because the people who actually were in real, they were white as well. Like, that's the reason why they're like that. Sure, they are in Everest, which is in Asia. There are minorities who are there helping. Heck, my favorite character in this movie is a minority, and her name is Yosoku, and she is one BA lady. However, the problem with the casting and getting into the bad is that the main concept that they were going for was hoping to get Christian Bale and have him as the lead. They didn't get Christian Bale, so they got Jason Clarke, who's been the guy who's been picking up after Christian Bale, but they didn't give him the role they were going to give Christian Bale. Instead, they decided we're going to make it an ensemble cast instead, and that's why I feel that the cast doesn't become the greatest it can be, because sure, it's a lot of great actors, but it's just too much, you know, it becomes like Amazing Spider-Man 3 with the villains. It's just too many people that it just doesn't work out. Not to mention when they're finally going up the mountain and they're all just wearing their coats, it's like you can't even tell who's who, and when they start doing these things where it's like they take off their headgear, it's like, why would you do that other than, oh, I gotta show my face just because, you know, I'm first billing. And it's like, no, I don't think people would do that. On top of it, it's based off of a true story, and it's not a happy true story. So there are some scenarios where they sort of have to fill in the holes and they take liberties for it, and sure, that's fine, but they do it in that writing setup and where it's like, remember, don't do this, this, and this, and later on, they're gonna do this, this, and this, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, I see how you guys set this up. And while I'm not bashing it for not being a happy movie, that's completely fine, it's just that they don't take the time to set up these characters to be a bit better, or more so their motivations. As we know, a lot of people would be like, why are you climbing Everest? That's crazy. And they poke fun at it, you know, when they say like, why are you doing this? And they're like, cause it's there. Then they don't come back to it ever again. And I would say that there's another movie, it's a documentary called Meru, I believe is how it's pronounced, and that movie is able to not only get some really nice shots, but also is able to get into the minds of these climbers. This movie isn't really able to do that because it felt like they were more focused on making that ensemble cast, and they are able to achieve the technical aspects, like I said, the cinematography and the sound, but because they didn't go with that Christian Bale story, they don't get that trifecta that would have been awesome. So overall, it's not a bad film, and it's one that's visually striking. Like I said, the sound design is amazing, that you need to see it in IMAX to be able to experience that. But like I said, that's at the end, at the 40 minutes. That isn't as crazy as you think it's going to be. But also, you have to sit through that like hour, 30 minutes where it's just developing these characters, who in the last 40 minutes you're not going to be able to tell who's who. However, as always, I'm always curious your thoughts. If you checked out this movie, definitely let me know down below what you thought about it. Who is your favorite character in the movie? Like I said, mine was Yosoku, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She was cool. I liked her. It was sad to see what happened. However, definitely let me know down below what you thought about this film. Whether you think it's going to be a big, strong contender for the Oscars and anything else just dealing with this movie in the comment section. And until next time, I'll be seeing you guys later.